we discuss critical topics related to your next home build project. A lot of projects run into issues because people get excited and jump into design before they do their homework and plan properly. In this series, we aim to help educate you on planning your build and making it a success and also just a wonderful journey. Please follow us on any of your favorite social media channels. We'll be there. We'll be releasing a video a month that deals with a pertinent topic. I'm Nadine, Principal of Make Architects. We deal mostly in luxury residential homes. And I'm here today with Rian from InvestBuild, and we are jumping in and starting with finance. Decided to start with that because it's really, really critical. If you don't have your finances in order, your build project experience is going to be an absolute nightmare. Yeah. So Rian, thanks for taking the time today and agreeing to chat with me and help educate us around build finance. I'm going to let Rian just introduce himself, tell us who he is and what he does.
Hi guys, thank you Nadine. I'm owner and founder of InvestBuild. We're a company based in Gauteng that focuses on upmarket residential construction, and what we're discussing today is super important. We come across this every day. Doesn't matter the size of the project or the financial ability of the client, everyone sort of makes the same mistakes. So the information that we're going to be sharing with you will add a lot of value in the process.
Okay, so thanks Jan. So, I think most of us are like, okay, I want to do a build project, maybe I know what I can afford, and then I'm like, okay, I need to loan money. So I'm assuming that I would go to the bank to get a bond.
100% correct. There's no real other institution that will finance a residential home, even though I get that question a lot. But yes, the bank is the place where you would go.
Okay, so I'm applying for just a regular bond?
No. So there's two types of bonds that you can apply for. So if you buy an already built house, that will be a traditional bond that we're used to. You apply for the bond and there's one bulk payout to the current owner of the house and you move on. A building bond works a bit differently because you need to secure a lump sum of money, but it will pay out in draw stages. So first of all, that bond will pay out the stand, because that stand needs to transfer in your name before you can build on it, and then from there will be progress draws. So that's a difference between a building bond and a traditional bond that you would be used to.
Okay, so there's actually a specific product for if I'm building a new home that is actually a building bond. So when I go to my bank, I actually need to ask for a building bond. Okay, so how does that process then normally work? So I know that I want to build a home, maybe I've identified where it is that we want to live. Maybe just take us through how that normally works.
So what is very important, I would say the starting point would be to determine your affordability. So go to your banker and there's a small little online calculator. Usually you complete that and it will give you an amount in terms of affordability that they estimate high level that you can afford. The next step would be to go and find a stand. Go and have a look where you would like to live, where there's availability, where there's something that you like, and factor that into your calculation. Building costs is a total different discussion that we'll have, but it's important for now that you just understand that ratio between stand and building costs and affordability needs to line up. Traditionally, you can't pay 60% for the land and then you've got 40% to build.
Okay, so what should that ratio of my budget be for land versus build?
It's a fuzzy type of concept. It depends. There's a lot of variables, but I would say no more than 20% for the actual land and the rest for the build.
Okay, so I think that's super valuable information. So I found a stand that fits that 20%. What do I now do? How do I now go to my bank and get the process going?
So there will be a whole heap of documents that they will require from a FICA and finance sort of perspective. And this is where it gets a bit complicated because banks don't finance land. So you approaching them for a building bond. So what they're expecting is you to provide them with a stand a plan, a costing, a contract, the entire sort of shebang for them to finance it. And at this stage, usually clients don't have that.
Okay, so a little bit chicken before the egg, because I want to know, are you going to give me finance to build the stand? And the bank literally wants me to have the plans, a contract with the builder, a
Yes.
costing, the whole shebang. So how do you guys then at InvestBuild deal with that? I mean, I'm an architect, and kind of people come to me and they tell me their budget, but I've never really actually been involved in going, can they afford this? Have they taken the correct steps? So how do you guys deal with this?
So that's a very tough one, and I don't know why the sort of banking industry hasn't changed this throughout the years, but it is the rule. So what we do to try and assist clients, I sit with them, I try and determine their affordability, I have a look at that land ratio versus building costs, and I advise them accordingly. We usually take our architect to the stand to go and inspect it. We'll inspect it. The architect will have a look at their wish list and just try and tick all the high-level boxes to make sure that we can deliver what the expectation is of the client on that specific stand. What we do then is we compile a dummy plan. So the architect chips in, they provide us with a dummy plan. I do a dummy costing on that plan that will line up with the envisaged budget.
Okay.
I then also give them a dummy contract. They submit all of that to the bank to then get a pre-approval bond for the entire project.
Okay. So done that, we have our, so I mean, I'm sure different banks have slightly different requirements, but essentially for me to apply for a building bond, I need to know my affordability, and then I need to have some sort of plan and a costing and a contract with the builder. Okay, so then once I've got that, and I've got, you know, is there any sort of pre-approval? I know I've had people come to me and they're sort of under time pressure because they've got a time limit that they need to submit stuff to the bank to. So I'm assuming there's then some sort of time limit for approval.
Yeah, so how the process would usually work is, let's say you go to a estate and you want to purchase a piece of land, you sign an offer to purchase.
Okay.
In that offer to purchase, they will give you, it depends on the estate, let's say between 40 and 60 days to deliver guarantees that you can actually pay for the stand.
Okay.
In that period, you will then have to approach me. We will have to go through the entire process, do the dummy costing, submit all of that to the bank. The bank will then approve based on your pre-approval, and they will then pay for the land. Once that has happened, the real process can really only start. Then we must start with the design, the real costing, and so forth. What would then happen once we've got the real information, we just then resubmit that to the bank and they will update on their side.
Okay.
What makes it complicated is if we then, with the real process, get to a number that is over your original approved bond. That's why it's so important, those initial meetings, that we upfront with one another and really do understand what we're in for and what certain items does cost.
Okay. So I've now got my bond and the bank has now paid for the land. When do I then need to start servicing? Do I then have to start servicing that building? How does that all work?
That's a great question, and the poor builder myself, we always on the short end of this. So what happens is, and it depends, I mean every bank has got a different deal. The two main elements in there is what happens with the interest. So as they pay out progress draws and the land, the interest will start to accumulate.
Okay.
So there's two options regarding that. One option would be for the bank to add that on top of your loan. So let's say you've got a 2 million rand loan, they'll say 2 million plus whatever interest incurred during the construction phase, and then you start to repay that. Or what they do, they subtract the interest occurred at the end of the project on the final draw. So what would happen, we would have had a budget of 5 million, now they only pay out 4.5 because 500,000 is interest.
It's interest. So do I need to, so you're saying different banks do it differently, so I might actually need to pay the interest
During the process?
And then when do I actually start paying the bond installments?
At the end. So once I furnish you with an occupation certificate or council.
Yes.
The bank will require a whole list, the entire list of documents, engineer, architect, a lot of SANS requirements.
And once they've got that, that's when they either need to start servicing the loan.
Yeah, and that's just on a side note, it's very difficult also for clients to time this because usually they sell their current property and they rent somewhere.
Yes.
So to align that rental contract with the building period to the exact sort of month is also very, very difficult if you don't have all your ducks in a row.
Okay.
Yes.
I had a question. So would the bank not require some sort of deposit? I know with, like, if you normally buy a house, for certain buyers they'll give you 100% bond, but for others you kind of need 10 or 20%. So what happens with that in a building bond? Is there a percentage that I need to have, that I need to pay before the bank's going to start paying?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So a lot of clients, because this process is so disjointed, they're uncomfortable with doing the dummy costing and this entire process to get access to a building bond. So what they then go and do is either one of two things. They apply for a normal bond just on the land, or they just purchase the land cash. Now, banks don't like financing land, so there will be a huge shortfall, usually 30%. If you just finance land, because it's very risky for them to resell the land if you default and so forth.
Easier
to sell a house.
Okay.
So normal bond on a piece of land, you're looking at about a 30% shortfall that you'll have to pay in cash. On a building bond, it depends on your affordability. I have had a lot of clients that's had 100%
Building bonds.
Building
Okay.
bonds. Because they're financing a complete project with actual top structure.
Okay.
That's the difference.
So I'm assuming though that would exclude your professional fees that you still need to pay, but that's a discussion I think we'll have in another
But
session.
also a very good question. So I always encourage clients to go for a building bond, the maximum bond that you're comfortable with. It's not to say that you have to spend all the money, because there will be a lot of upfront costs. So you either go for a turnkey building project that we can also discuss later on. A turnkey project will be one figure that includes everything. And that you can take to the bank and say finance, and they will pay out as per progress. The other sort of avenue to follow is a normal construction contract, but that contractor would then assume that you have paid all the professional fees up front.
So it's not included in
It's
the
not
cost.
included, and that would be the architect, engineer, council, and that could be quite a big number.
Yes.
So you do need to have cash available when you venture down this path, definitely. Don't spend everything on land, or make sure you bond as much as you can and keep the cash flow in your pocket, because there's going to be a lot of ad hoc expenses along the line.
Okay, so I think that's something to understand, and I think this. Please feel free to comment below if there's anything that you'd like to ask us questions about. But I think it's very important to understand all the costs involved. So
Yes.
your building cost, your professional team, any other associated fees with building a house. I think something I come across a lot is that people have a certain budget in mind, but they're not necessarily always au with building costs and what things cost. And it's just simply because if it's not something you do every day,
Yeah, you don't know.
you don't understand it. So you look in magazines, you see pretty pictures, but those pretty pictures don't have a price with them,
100%.
Okay, so I think that was very, very useful. So I just kind of want to summarize. So you're saying that there's a bond and there's a building bond. Much better to get a building bond. Don't make sure that the amount that your affordability, you're not spending 50% of your money on the land and then don't have enough money left to build. Ensure that ratio is correct. It is a bit back to front in that you're going to have to do an affordability, and then you're actually going to have to submit a whole heap of documents to the bank.
Yes.
And there's probably going to be some sort of time limit on that approval. And then obviously just check what the arrangement is in terms of the interest. Are you servicing that during the build process?
Or they just deduct it at the end, or
if they
add it on
deduct
top.
it on the end, you're going to end up with a suddenly huge shortfall of
Yeah.
whatever it is that you then have to find before you can move into your house. Okay, so I think that's been very useful. I think I'd like to chat a little bit more about building costs with you. I don't know.
Definitely, it is super important. Just a little stat from my office, if I look at my estimation and costing department, 50% of all first submitted plans for pricing never gets built in that original form.
Okay.
And the reason for that is budget.
Okay.
It's a very, very important element of this entire process. As you touched on now, people, they scroll on Instagram, they see photos, they see things on movies, they see rim float pools, all of that. It's very nice, but it all adds up, and eventually you end up at a very expensive rand per square price.
Yes.
There's ways, so I always advise clients, design doesn't have to be expensive. There's ways to get around it, but you must be clever and you must definitely have the correct design team involved from the word go.
Okay, so I think that's going to be our next discussion on Build Insights. Is we'll be chatting a little bit about build costs. So feel free to ask your questions down in the comments. From my side, we've got a resource that you can download on our website. We've put together a new build planning pack. We'll also just help you get started. I think, Rian, you've also got
I've got a resource page, how to finance your build. There's a lot of important information and checklists on there. You can just go to our website and have a look at them. Download them free of charge.
So you're www.investbuild.co.za. I'm www.make.co.za, but it's not M-A-K-E, it's M-E-I-K. Funny story. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for joining us. Rian,
thank you, Nadine. Awesome.
Been cool. We look
Have a
forward
good day.
to seeing you again on our next Build Insights.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.